I'll do a YouTube on this one too. The laundry upstairs not even dry yet. I don't know if somebody shut it off or what. I don't know. I kind of appreciate this guy.
Who is considered by many
Get
to
his
be the
volume up.
father of archaeology. So the question is what exactly did he do to earn this honorable title, and where did he do it? I am here at Tel El Hesi. The reason that this site is so important is that it is the birthplace of pottery chronology.
Pottery.
We're asking the question whether pottery chronology is reliable.
I stopped by a place the other day. I can teach pottery classes.
How it began. Now, this is a story that's really important because there's so many debates going on within archaeology, debates on pottery and the chronology of sites and when things date and to what, and whether this lines up with historical texts or not. If you're going to understand these
He had some things about
part of these arguments, you really have to understand this story.
Israel. Yeah. He had a teaching on the Tower of Babel, I believe, down around Shinar. Zechariah chapter 5 has the missiles from Shinar, Iran, being fired now.
Scientific direction. And the key figure through whom this happened was the archaeologist Flinders Petrie. So since Flinders Petrie is considered by many scholars to be the father of archaeology, then the place where he did his work that ended up taking the field in a more scientific direction, where he developed the methodologies that are still used today, that place then would be considered the birthplace.
Get some Tim's coffee here. I had it from the other day. Nothing like cold coffee, huh?
About 16 miles away from Gaza. So after spending almost
10
years excavating in Egypt, Flinders Petrie came in 1890 to the Holy Land to excavate Tel El Hesi. So this was the first site in the Holy Land that he dug. So
1890.
Of all the sites in the Holy Land, why did he choose for his first excavation Tel El Hesi? Well, he chose it because he believed it to be the city of Lachish, which is mentioned in the Bible over 20 times. He didn't want to dig an ancient site that isn't mentioned in the Bible, that doesn't have historical information. He wanted one that had a lot of information from historical sources. I've just repositioned here just momentarily, just hopefully so you can see. I mean, the Tel, I'm standing on the highest part of the Tel, but it goes way out, the city itself, to these hills off in the distance. It's a very large Tel. It's very substantial, and it's very impressive. And I was expecting it to be much smaller. Tel El Hesi had major challenges, and one of them was that in 1890, the top of the Tel was covered with crops that the owner would not allow to be destroyed. However, there was a stream that went past Tel Hesi, and it went right past the eastern side and had cut into the mound. And the erosion had eroded out a cliff that was about 60 feet high. And so Petrie saw this cliff before him, and he could see the layers stacked on top of each other from the inner core of the Tel of Hesi. Here's the creek down below me. You see the reeds going by the base of Tel El Hesi. And you see this very steep slope and going up to where the side of the
we had hills around the valley where we were, like this in Saskatchewan. Oh, there. Okay, we know what we do for advertising on this now, don't we? We don't have to go take a break. We just click it off. Yeah, there we go.
was also the case back in 1890 when Flinders Petrie came here. So this is what Petrie
So I'm
says.
doing some YouTube. Make a few comments if I know something to add on. I watch a lot of this stuff myself anyway, so just do YouTube too. This guy's very good. I appreciate his archaeological stuff. Okay. Some of them you really wonder what they're doing and what they're promoting.
So here's Tel Hesi, right? And then the stream ran by and eroded the side of the Tel. so that it produced this cliff 60 feet
He's using a
tall,
whiteboard. I got my whiteboard over here, see? Feast of Trumpets coming up, September 23rd. I had it up the top here. It fell down.
in that 60-foot cliff.
Oh well, it's
that
covering
he was
over the
looking at.
maps and
So
stuff
instead
anyway.
of digging in the typical way from the top, because
Can
of
you
all
not-
these crops that couldn't be destroyed, then Petrie instead excavated from the side of the tell.
Yeah, it's
And
good.
then he saved time by having already the whole inner core of the tell exposed to him. And so he was able in 6 short weeks to understand the whole history of the site, from the Canaanite period all the way to the Greek period, in just 6 short weeks, because he had this advantage where he already had all of this exposed, where he could see it and study it and pull out from each layer the pottery from that layer, study it independently. And so he pulled the pottery out from these different layers, and he studied the differences. Some of these differences
This
were
is
already known,
1890.
differences in styles, and so he used the
So
pottery.
that's before Israel was a
the
state in
layers. He also
1948.
used the Bible, and he correlated each layer with a biblical event. The oldest layers were the ones at the bottom of the tell, and the youngest layers were the ones at the top. So what he did is he now had the chronology of the site in 2 places. He had it in the stratigraphy of the site itself in the face of this cliff, and he also had the history of Lachish in the Bible. And so he could connect then the events in the Bible to the events in the tell. And this is what biblical archaeology is all about. This is what archaeology is all about. It's about connecting the historical sources that are available about a site that's being excavated, so that you can understand and interpret the things that are being found in that excavation to the historical record. This is why archaeology is a field that's under the umbrella field of history. The goal is to connect the archaeological record to the historical record. Then you
It
really have
confirms
something
our
solid.
history.
This is
Confirms the
also,
biblical
reason
record.
why the archaeology
People
that
say
takes
Israel
place
wasn't there
between
before. Oh
Egypt and
yeah, they were.
Mesopotamia
So
and the places
come
and
on.
the time periods that the Bible
We have
is
all
talking
kinds of
about
places,
is called
archaeological stuff and
biblical
everything else.
archaeology, because as we see in this dig of Flinders Petrie at Tel El Hessi, that is the goal. The goal is to connect the biblical texts, the Israelite history and their records, to the events that are represented in these layers in the stratigraphy of the site that's being excavated. Now, Petrie's conclusion was this: we have now traced the history of the place as seen in the remains and in the Jewish records. The correspondence is complete. Another thing that he shows is he shows a cross-section of Tel El Hessi. He shows the tell, and then he shows the cut, the face of it, and then he draws in the different levels that he found there. The way that works is simply,
I'm gonna actually have to look up where it says Tallahassee in the Bible. I think I've heard of it.
The Amorites were
Amorite.
a tribe of the Canaanites, so it was a Canaanite city that came to an end at a destruction
That could be up near
level.
Jericho or
And,
someplace.
the Bible says that the Canaanite city of Lachish was destroyed by Joshua and the Israelites.
There you
So
go.
he connects that then with the conquest. And then it becomes the kingdom of Israel and later the kingdom of Judah. And so he connects evidence from certain kings who the Bible says built up Judah, like Solomon and Rehoboam. He connects events to Hezekiah, and then that city is destroyed. He finds this destruction layer, and so he goes to the biblical record, which says Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, destroyed Lachish, and he connects that event in the Bible with the event and the evidence that he found in the tell. And then the city is rebuilt, and then it's destroyed again. That's the Babylonian destruction. The Bible says that Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians destroyed Lachish, so he identifies that destruction, and then it's rebuilt, and it lasts until the Greek period, and then the city comes to an end. He summarizes the pottery this way. He says, all of the pottery found was kept classified, roughly at first, and then as I began to learn it, and to be able to understand the town, each piece was leveled to within a foot or two. Every distinctive piece was kept, and is here drawn on plates 5 through 9.
Got a wobbly railing at home?
Oh,
Fix it with this
here's
one.
another advertisement.
Just 2
Oh,
seconds for welds, and your railing will be sturdier
yeah.
than new in 3 minutes.
I'm kind of interested in these little welders sometimes. Wouldn't mind to have a welder again. Okay, bye-bye. 43 here and 43 there and everything else.
Pottery is stated, the levels in feet and in the parts of the site at which it has been found, and the
Getting warm.
approximate
I
dates
shut the heaters
corresponding
off.
to those levels stated
So,
in years
jiggle
BC.
the
This is
phone
where
around a bit. I
it
should have a
began.
better
This is
camera.
the
See, that's what I need.
birthplace
Too.
of pottery chronology, because he was the first one, Flinders Petrie, right here at Tel El Hessi, that used the pottery and the layers that were exposed in this tell and the Bible to correlate with them in order to date the occupation of this ancient city one layer at a time, using both the Bible and the pottery. Here's the problem. The problem is that Petrie was wrong. He made a mistake in identifying Tel El Hessi as Lachish, because Lachish was later to be discovered at another site called Tel Duwir, and the excavations that have happened at Tel Duwir have made it pretty much certain that that is the site of Lachish. Lachish was later discovered by William Foxwell Albright. It's not too terribly far from here. So these connections that Petrie made between Tel El Hessi as Lachish in the Bible are lost. Not completely. They're not completely lost, because whatever city Tel El Hessi was, it certainly was a Canaanite, Amorite city that was part of Canaan, and that was affected by the conquest of the Israelites, and it became an Israelite city, and it was affected by the conquests of the Assyrians and the Babylonians. And so it wasn't all disconnected, but there was the mistake of it being misidentified. Archaeologists today credit Flinders Petrie for starting pottery chronology.
Okay, maybe.
Starting,
Well, he's getting near the end here.
Practice the way that to this day archaeology layers are.
You can watch it completely if you want.
Credited for that, but they
Go
don't
to his sites.
accept
He's got
his,
some good stuff out there. I'm going to say just a little bit here too is history. How can we understand the present correctly if we don't understand the past? Okay? And the grave, Matthew 27, and the graves were open, and in many bodies of the saints which slept arose. Slept. That's 1 Thessalonians 4:14. Those asleep. It doesn't say soul or spirit. Canaanite teaching. And came out of the graves after his resurrection. First fruits, plural, Revelation 14, verse 4. Just flip the numbers the other way. First fruits. He's talking about the Canaanites. Go to Zechariah 14. Amos 1, Zephaniah 2 mentions Gaza. Now, pushed in by UN and US is part of that, Mr. American. Look at the nonsense now. Isaiah 29 covers something there. Errol Schoen went into an 8-year coma. Hey, Mr. Ravi Singer, do you want to deny that too? Okay. Okay, this is living waters. That's how they're surviving in Gaza. And there's live freshwater fishing. So this is actually happening now. Okay, half of the sun. But what I was going to show, the saints come with you. Okay? With Zechariah 14, right at the end, it says Canaanite. Can you see that? Canaanite. That's from the Hebrew. The new versions translated something else, trader or merchant. It's not talking about occupation. My wife was even studying some Hebrew. It is Hebrew Canaanite. So how come they translated? Okay. So, you know, this is a lot of the history. The angels, those saints come with ambassadors are already chosen. See, there's 7 candles in the menorah. Enoch was in the first. Yeshua, Jesus, is the center candle. Pentecost and prior to the tribulation era already happened. It was called Counter-Reformation, trying to push it all into the future. No, we're the next event. Revelation 7, the great multitude. Read it. How can we understand the present and we don't understand the past? This is what he's doing. Archaeological digs, and it lines up with the Bible. Sorry, Palestinians. But your Gaza was mentioned long time before. Rome named it Palestinia after the Babylonians. On and on and on. Lots and lots of history here. Okay? So don't go claiming that it wasn't, Israel was never there. Mainstream media likes to promote this. They don't like this book. Isn't that ironic? The high priests were politically appointed. They want to save their own butt. They didn't care about the people. Okay? They didn't care about the poor and the needy. Jesus rebuked them for it. Okay? They tried to hide the fact that he was even resurrected. Huh? They didn't want the situation changing. They had a good thing going. Don't cause trouble with the Romans. Come on, that's our paycheck. They tried to hide his resurrection, and they're still trying to hide this. They're politically appointed. They're reaping what they have not sown, Ezekiel 34. They got a diploma from some higher education that promotes psychology, a form of godliness, denying the power. They get a diploma from some higher education. They got a good thing going. They're milking the sheep, feeding upon the sheep. They're reaping what they have not sown. Okay? It's all around us. How come this is starting over again? I don't know what happened. Oh, I don't know what happened.